All right, guys, so I'm going to show you how to use the Tracing Buddy app for this project. You can find this app in your self-service. It looks like a little piece of graph paper, and we're going to use it to set up a grid on our drawing or on our photo so that we can use it for a drawing. So I'm going to click to launch the app, and then the first thing you're going to do is click the camera icon and then click Photo Library so that you've done this once you have already downloaded your image. So I'm going to click in here and I'm going to choose this image of a deer. And then you can switch it to line art, but I usually find that original image looks best. Like I'll show you real quick if I switch it to line art. You get something like this, which might be useful for some photos. Like maybe if you were trying to get like the antlers really good and sharp, it would help. But for the most part, original image is gonna be your best bet, because even if you do line art, you're gonna have to go back and do another one in original image later on to get the shading right anyway. So I'm gonna click next. And then you want it set up exactly like how I have mine set up. So you wanna make sure that squared grid is turned on. You wanna make sure that you have 3 horizontal squares and 4 vertical squares so that it matches the proportion of your paper. Now yours may look more like this. Whenever you first start it, you may have some white around the edges. So you wanna zoom until there is no white left, but don't zoom in too far. Just zoom until the white is completely gone. And then you're gonna click next. And then you should have something like this. You can play around with some different settings. Like I'll turn on the settings here. So you can play around with making the line thickness thicker or thinner. You can change the opacity of the lines so that they are more or less see-through. And you can change the color of the lines. So if that's helpful for you, you can do that. At some point, we're going to make this image black and white, though, so it doesn't really matter what color the lines are. So I would just go with something like this. This button will allow you to download the image, but you also can't do that without paying for it. So we're not going to worry about that. So once you have something like this that you're relatively happy with, you're going to take a screenshot. And you will find that you are going to get ads down at the bottom, and it's going to block off part of your drawing, and that's just something we have to deal with in order to use this app. So it's fine. Also, while you're working, if you want to, you can click on one square at a time and kind of like zoom in to see just that square, if that's something that's helpful for you. And then swipe to go back out. So if you want to do that and just zoom into one square, you can do that. For me, I kind of like to see the overall picture, but that's up to you. So once you have done that, you can start drawing, or you can go in and make it black and white before you start drawing. It doesn't really matter. You can draw first and then turn it to black and white, or you can turn it to black and white first, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do it. So you open your photo in your Photos app, and then you click Edit, and then you click on the filters. So this right here is the filters. And then you're just gonna scroll until you find a black and white one. There's usually several black and white ones. So there's this one, that one would probably be too much. Like that would be very difficult to shade. So this one or this one is probably my best bet. They're pretty similar. I'm gonna go with this one. So I'm gonna click Done, and it is saved and it is ready to show you exactly where to shade. So for me, this is easier to see what I need to shade light and dark versus seeing it in full color. But like I say, if you want to draw it in full color first, and then once you're done drawing and you're ready to shade, then change it to black and white, you can, or you can change it to black and white now. It doesn't really matter either way. So this is how you set up your image. And now I'm about to show you how to set up your paper. Okay, so now that you have set up your image, you want to set up your paper in the exact same way. So because your image had 3 sections across, we're going to create 3 sections across with our ruler on our paper. If you are using drawing paper, it is usually 9 by 12. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. And I'm going to create 3-inch sections. If you're using a different kind of paper, you'll just need to measure it and divide it by 3, and then use that to create your sections. So I put a mark at 3 and 6. I'm going to go down here and do the same. Put a mark. I'm making sure to line up my 0 with the edge of the paper. Put a mark at 3 and 6. And then I'm going to divide it this way. It is so important that you make these lines as light as you possibly can. when you're done, or rather as you go, you're gonna start erasing these lines. When you turn in your final image, you should not be able to see any traces of the lines anymore. The lines are just to help you set it up as you go. And you'll see I did them lighter down here. This is probably about how light you want it overall. This is maybe a little bit too dark. If you have trouble making light lines, instead of holding your pencil like this when you're making the lines, hold your pencil like this. So if you go like this, then you can make a really nice light line just by kind of dragging your pencil across the paper. So now I have it divided into 3 sections horizontally. And now I'm going to divide it into 4 sections vertically. So this is going to differ depending on the size of your paper. The paper I'm using is 9 by 12, which is easily divisible by 3. So I did 3-inch sections across the top to divide my 9 into 3 sections. Mine will also be 3 again down here, and it will divide up perfectly. Yours may not divide up perfectly, so listen to me. Whatever measurement you use to make your squares here is what you use here. And if there's a little bit extra, you're just going to cut it off. And if there's a little bit that doesn't quite fit, you're just going to cut off that part of your image. So let me say that again. If you did maybe 2 1/4 here, so if each of these lines was 2 1/4 apart, because that's the size when you measured it and divided by 3, that's what you came up with, then these boxes going down would also be 2 1/4. And if your 2 1/4 only got you to here, and that's where your last one stopped, you would just use scissors and you would cut off this part of your paper. If your last, let's say maybe you did something a little bit bigger, let's say maybe yours was like 3 1/2, something like that. So if you did yours 3 1/2 here and you did 3 1/2 down this way, but your 3 1/2 would take you down here, then you're just not going to worry about it. Whenever you start drawing the bottom boxes of your photo, you're just not going to draw all of that box. You're not going to try to squeeze it down into the paper. You're just going to cut off some of it on the photo, and that's fine. Mine, like I say, works out nicely so that I end up with 3-inch squares overall. So I'm going to put marks at 3, 6, and 9. Then the same thing over here. 3, 6, 9. And then once again, holding my pencil very loosely, I'm going to divide it across so that in the end, I end up with something that looks exactly like the photo grid, that is 4 down by 3 across. It doesn't matter what your measurements end up being as long as they are square. My boxes are exactly 3 inches by 3 inches. If yours are 2 1/2 by 2 1/2, if yours are 3.1 by 3.1, it doesn't matter what they are as long as they are square, as long as there are 3 of them across and 4 down, then you'll be able to do the photo project.